The order filled at 3:47 p.m. on a Tuesday afternoon. $200,000, all in. My hand was shaking so badly I could barely move the mouse. That single trade, that one moment of arrogance, would cost me everything I had built over 3 years. I watched the numbers flash, red, then deeper red, the market's indifferent blade slicing through my capital, erasing not just the money, but the countless hours, the sleepless nights, the sacrifices. It was a brutal, public execution of my hubris. A stark reminder that the market takes no prisoners, shows no mercy, and remembers every single one of your mistakes. You know that feeling, that raw, gut-wrenching dread when you've held a losing trade too long, hoping it would reverse, felt that sick, knot in your stomach, watching your account bleed. That day, my stomach was a battlefield. I had convinced myself, just like so many before me, that this time was different. The market was rallying, everyone was talking about it, and the fear of missing out, that insidious whisper in the back of your mind, had drowned out every lesson I thought I had learned. Stop and think about your last 10 trades right now. Was there one, just one, where euphoria blinded you to the obvious signs of danger? That's the market's first trap, the cycle Livermore warned about. A force so powerful it can strip a man bare, leaving him with nothing but regret. For years, I believed that loss was just a miscalculation of price, a wrong direction call. But the real cost wasn't just the money. It was the chilling realization that I had walked into a trap I'd been warned about, a trap that had existed for a century, yet I saw it as new. That trap is the cycle itself, not merely economic, but deeply psychological, preying on our most primal urges of hope and fear, amplifying them to catastrophic levels within the collective consciousness of the market. During the euphoric ascent, the urge to participate, to not be left behind, becomes overwhelming. New traders flock in, often with borrowed capital, chasing ever higher prices, convinced that this time is different. They ignore every fundamental tenet of value, risk management, and market history, believing they are part of a new paradigm. This is precisely when the smart money, observing the irrational exuberance, begins to quietly exit. 90% of retail traders fail within their first year. They tell you it's lack of knowledge, a poor system, or bad luck. I tell you, it's something far more insidious. Something Livermore understood to his core. It's the inability to recognize your place within this destructive cycle. You've felt that pull, that siren song of the crowd, the collective delusion that makes you believe the impossible is now inevitable. That's the market's design, to transfer wealth from the active to the patient, from the emotional to the disciplined. It's a game, as Livermore famously stated, not for the stupid, the mentally lazy, the man of less than average emotional balance, or the get-rich-quick adventurer. I remember it was August 14th, 2:15 in the afternoon, the moment I understood my real enemy wasn't the bulls or the bears. My enemy was the man looking back at me in the mirror every morning, and he was undefeated. He was the one who ignored the warning signs, who succumbed to the herd, who believed this time is different when every fiber of market history screamed otherwise. The market isn't your enemy. It never was. Your enemy is that internal voice, that emotional current that sweeps you away from objective analysis and into the maelstrom of speculation. For years, I believed discipline was about following rules. I was completely wrong. Discipline is about something far more dangerous, something most traders never confront. It's about resisting the siren call of the crowd, whether it's the euphoria of a bull run or the panic of a bear market. It means developing a system based on objective analysis, not subjective feelings, and then adhering to that system with an almost religious fervor. My problem, and perhaps yours, was that I thought I understood the rules, but I hadn't yet learned how to fight the man who kept breaking them. You've been right on direction, but wrong on timing. You've felt the agony of exiting early, only to watch the trade hit your target without you. Or worse, you've doubled down on a loser, convinced this time you were right, only to watch your capital evaporate. That's the psychological cycle at play, the hope that keeps you in a losing trade, the fear that pulls you out of a winning one too soon. Livermore's method wasn't about predicting the exact top or bottom, a fool's errand, but about identifying the trend and riding it until it genuinely changes. This required patience to wait for clear signals, courage to enter against prevailing sentiment when the trend was truly turning, and, most critically, the discipline to cut losses quickly and let profits run. The forgotten aspect lies in the simplicity and difficulty of applying these truths. It's not about complex indicators or secret strategies. It's about the brutal honesty required to face your own psychological biases. My journey through those 7 blown accounts, those $143,000 lost, taught me that every tick against me wasn't just a loss of capital. It was a battle against my own nature, a nature that craved easy money, that feared being left out, that believed in miracles when only logic would serve. The amateur sees a market crash as bad luck. The professional sees it as inevitable, a natural consequence of the cycle. The difference: one is destroyed, the other survives, and often thrives. This isn't just about market cycles. It's about the internal war. The market will always present opportunities, but it will also expose your weaknesses without mercy. It's an impersonal machine designed to extract capital from the impatient and the emotional, feeding it to the cold, calculating minds who understand the game. It's an impersonal machine designed to extract capital from the impatient and the emotional, feeding it to the cold, calculating minds who understand the game. But understanding this intellectually is one thing. Living it, breathing it, making it the very bedrock of your trading existence is another. That's where the internal war truly begins, where the rubber meets the road, and where most traders, armed with knowledge but devoid of self-mastery, fall. You've watched a small loss become a catastrophe, haven't you? That twitch in your finger, the one that moves the stop-loss just a little further. Then a little further still, whispering promises of a reversal that never comes. That's hope, amplified by fear, blinding you to the market's clear message. It's the same insidious force that drove me to that $200,000 mistake. I knew the rules, but I didn't know how to silence the voice that said, just one more tick. But there was something else I didn't see coming, a deeper layer to this cycle of self-destruction. The market, in its relentless indifference, doesn't just present obvious traps. It seduces you with what appears to be the perfect setup, a clear trend, a textbook pattern, precisely when your emotional defenses are weakest. You've studied, you've waited, you've done everything right, and then you see it. The trade that simply cannot fail. That's the moment of maximum danger. Picture this: you're convinced the market is about to turn. The signs are all there. You've done your homework. Your last few trades were small winners, building your confidence. You see a dip, a perfect entry, and the urge to go big, to make back those earlier losses, to finally prove yourself right, becomes overwhelming. What do? Because your answer reveals everything about why you're not consistently profitable yet. Most traders, myself included, for far too long, see this as an opportunity to average down, to add to a losing position, convinced the inevitable bounce is coming. They think they're being smart, but they're just loading the gun the market will use to execute them. You've felt that overwhelming urge to get back what you lost, that burning need for redemption after a bad trade. It's a primal scream within, a refusal to accept defeat. That's precisely when the market, that cold, impersonal machine, steps in to clean you out. My perfect setup turned into a perfect disaster because I allowed my belief in my own genius, fueled by the market's preceding euphoria, to dictate my position size. I didn't just enter the trade. I married it, convinced it was the one, ignoring the fundamental truth that size is survival. Size is survival because fear destroys judgment when positions are too large. Every tick against you feels like a bullet, not just a data point. Your hands sweat, your vision narrows. Fear paralyzes rational thought, forcing you to hold on to hope, to average down, to do everything a disciplined trader knows is fatal. Without size discipline, there is no survival. Only the slow bleed of death by 1,000 over-leveraged cuts. I learned this not from a textbook, but from the brutal education of watching my account evaporate, again and again, because I thought I could outmuscle the market. You think cutting losses is hard. That's not the hard part. I'll tell you what the hard part really is. It's the agonizing discipline of doing nothing when your mind screams for action, of resisting the temptation to enter a trade that looks almost perfect, but lacks that final, undeniable confirmation. It's the strength to walk away from the screen, to let opportunities pass, knowing that a truly clear setup, one that aligns with the larger trend and your objective system, will always present itself again. The real lesson came 3 months after I thought I had figured it out. I had cut my losses, I had reduced my size, but I was still overtrading, constantly searching for that next perfect entry. I was trading out of boredom, out of ego, out of the need to be active. The market wasn't just taking my money, it was taking my time, my energy, my peace of mind. I was still fighting the man in the mirror, but now he was disguised as impatience. You've sat there, staring at the screen, feeling the compulsion to act, to do something, anything, just to be in the game. That restless energy, that burning desire to find the next big move, that's the market's subtle trap. It feeds on your need for constant stimulation, making you believe that activity equals profitability. But true profitability, as Livermore understood, comes from patient inaction. Waiting is work. It is the hardest work in trading, because it demands control over your own restless mind. It took another 2 years, another $50,000, before I truly understood that waiting, true waiting, was the most profitable action I could take. It wasn't about waiting for a specific price point. It was about waiting for the confluence of price, volume, and, most critically, my own emotional state. It was about seeing the setup clearly, not through the fog of hope or the haze of impatience, but with the cold, calculating eye of a surgeon. Only then could I execute with the precision and discipline that survival demands, adhering to size control, and letting the market confirm my thesis, rather than imposing my will upon it. This internal mastery, this war won within, is what allows one to truly follow the tape, not opinions, not hopes, but the undeniable language of price and volume. The tape, to the uninitiated, is just a stream of numbers, meaningless noise. But to the disciplined eye, it sings. It speaks volumes, not in words, but in the rhythm of its ticks, the weight of its volume, the very breath of its movement. It tells you not what should happen, but what is happening. It reveals the true intentions of the market, the collective psychology laid bare. I learned to ignore the pundits, the news, the whispers in the trading pits, and simply listen to that relentless, impersonal machine. It was hard. My ego screamed for me to be smarter, to predict, to outthink. But the tape doesn't care about your intellect. It only cares about the truth of supply and demand, the raw, unvarnished reality of capital flowing. You've been right on direction, haven't you? Only to be too early. You've seen a perfect setup, jumped in, only to watch it consolidate, then reverse, leaving you whipsawed and frustrated, your conviction eroded. That's the market's cruel joke on the impatient. It shows you the destination, but hides the journey and punishes those who rush. Livermore understood that patience wasn't just a virtue. It was the ultimate weapon against this particular market deception, a shield against the psychological assault of premature entry. But even when I started listening to the tape, truly listening, there was a subtle deception, a phantom signal that still cost me dearly. It wasn't a lie, but a misdirection, a trick of light and shadow that made me see what I wanted to see, not what was actually there. For a time, I believed I had mastered the art of waiting. But the market had another lesson, a more profound one, waiting to ambush me. It was a test of commitment, not just to the trade, but to the very principles of independent thought. You think waiting is hard. Try waiting when everyone around you is getting rich, when the market is screaming higher, and you're sitting on your hands, feeling the collective euphoria press in on you. That's not just patience. That's an act of defiance against your own nature, against the very fabric of human greed and the fear of missing out. The amateur sees opportunity everywhere, chasing every rumor, every spike. The professional sees only the handful of truly undeniable opportunities that align with his objective system, and he has the courage, the cold resolve, to ignore the rest. The phantom signal, that subtle deception, was often a premature breakout or breakdown. The tape would show a strong move, volume would pick up, and my old habits would scream, "This is it. Jump in. Don't miss the move." But often, it was merely an initial surge, a test of resistance or support, lacking the sustained conviction of true institutional buying or selling. It was the market clearing out the early birds, liquidating the weak hands, before revealing its true path. I learned that the tape doesn't just speak, it confirms. It doesn't just show a move, it shows the commitment behind that move. This commitment often came not in the initial flurry, but in the patient, steady follow-through. The grind that wears down the doubters and solidifies the trend, leaving a clear, undeniable path. This understanding, this waiting for confirmation, was the key to unlocking the true power of pyramiding. Livermore famously taught to never average down on a loser, a death sentence for any account, a desperate act of wishful thinking. But he also taught to average up on a winner, to add to a position that was already proving you right, that was already showing you its strength. This isn't greed. It's intelligent risk management, allowing the market to validate your thesis before you commit more capital. It transforms a small win into a significant profit, but only if you have the discipline to wait for that confirmation, to add only when the market is speaking unequivocally, not when your emotions are dictating your actions. You've exited a winning trade too early, haven't you? Taken a small profit only to watch the stock continue its ascent, leaving you with regret and the bitter taste of missed opportunity, a feeling that gnaws at your resolve. That's the flip side of the psychological cycle. Fear of losing what you've gained, fear of the market taking it back, compels you to cut your winners short. But true profit, the kind that builds empires, comes from letting your winners run, from having the courage to add to strength, not weakness, from trusting the tape when it confirms your initial judgment. 3 years, 7 blown accounts, $143,000 lost before I truly grasped this. The market pays you to be patient, and it pays you to be right. But it pays you exponentially if you are patient and right and have the courage to press your advantage when the odds are overwhelmingly in your favor. My early losses were not just due to being wrong, but to being right and not having the conviction to capitalize on it, or being wrong and having the arrogance to fight it. It was a war of attrition, and my own mind was the enemy. For years, I believed the ultimate goal was to predict the market, to know what it would do next, to outsmart the collective. I was profoundly mistaken. The market is not predictable in that sense. It is only reactive. True mastery isn't about foresight. It's about intelligent response. It's about letting the market tell you what it intends to do, then aligning yourself with its undeniable momentum, rather than imposing your will upon its vast, indifferent currents. The real profit isn't in guessing. It's in listening and acting decisively when the message is clear, when the tape sings its song of confirmation. This shift in perspective, from predicting to reacting, from imposing to aligning, changed everything. It transformed trading from a constant battle against the market into a dance with the market. But even with this profound understanding, there remained one final, insidious trap. A psychological barrier so deeply ingrained that it still threatened to unravel everything I had painstakingly built. It was the market's ultimate test, reserved for those who thought they had truly conquered themselves, a subtle whisper that could still turn victory into ruin. But even with this profound understanding, there remained one final, insidious trap. A psychological barrier so deeply ingrained that it still threatened to unravel everything I had painstakingly built. It was the market's ultimate test, reserved for those who thought they had truly conquered themselves, a subtle whisper that could still turn victory into ruin. That trap was the quiet, creeping return of ego, disguised as confidence, after a string of successful, disciplined trades. It was the belief that I had finally conquered the market, that I was now somehow immune to its indifference, that my newfound discipline made me infallible. You've been there, haven't you? You've had a string of good trades, felt invincible, felt like you finally got it, only to watch a single act of hubris unravel weeks, even months, of hard-won gains in one swift, brutal reversal. That feeling of invincibility, that subtle shift from objective analysis to subjective certainty, is the market's most cunning ambush. It seduces you with success, then exploits your overconfidence the moment you deviate, just slightly, from the principles that brought you that success. Everything I just said about patience, discipline, and listening to the tape, forget it for a moment. Because there's a specific type of market environment. A silent assassin that can still destroy you even if you follow every rule. It's not about being wrong. It's about being right at the wrong time, or, more accurately, being right when the market itself has no clear direction, when it refuses to commit. This is the chopping market, the range-bound grind, where trends are fleeting illusions and conviction is punished. This silent assassin operates when the market is in a deep consolidation, a period of indecision where every breakout is a fake-out, every breakdown a reversal. You see a textbook pattern, you identify a trend, you apply your principles. But the market simply refuses to move with sustained momentum. It whipsaws you, eroding your capital, not with one catastrophic loss, but with 1,000 small, frustrating cuts. It's a test of a different kind. The test of inaction in the face of apparent opportunity. The discipline to recognize when the tape is speaking in riddles, not clear commands. You've sat there, haven't you, seeing what looks like a perfect setup, but the market just chops. It moves a little, then reverses, then moves again, never quite breaking free. You take a small loss, then another, feeling your confidence drain, wondering if your system is broken. That's the market telling you, in its indifferent way, that it's not ready to trend, that the smart money is waiting, accumulating, or distributing, and you, the active trader, are simply providing liquidity for their patient game. But understanding the market's true rhythm, knowing when to act and when to wait in the larger cycle, is only half the battle. The other half lies in a deeper, almost spiritual understanding of capital itself. Most traders treat money as a score, a way to keep tabs on their performance, a metric of their intelligence. But money in the market is not just money, it is ammunition. And I learned, through the most brutal of lessons, that most traders are firing their ammunition wildly, not even understanding the true cost of each bullet. Stop and consider this. What is the true purpose of your trading capital? Is it for quick profits? Is it a tool for ego? Or is it fundamentally for survival? Your answer will dictate your fate. If you see it merely as something to multiply quickly, you will treat it with recklessness, deploying it without the reverence it demands. But if you see it as ammunition, as the very lifeblood of your ability to fight another day, then every single trade, every position size, every stop-loss becomes a strategic decision of paramount importance. You've felt that desperation, haven't you? Watching your account dwindle, each trade feeling like a gamble for survival, each dollar lost diminishing your ability to fight another day. That's the consequence of treating ammunition like confetti. You run out of bullets, not because you were wrong on every shot, but because you fired too many, too often, at targets that weren't worth the risk. Capital preservation isn't just a rule. It's the sacred duty of a trader, the ultimate act of self-preservation in an arena that cares nothing for your aspirations. The market isn't trying to steal your money. It's trying to teach you about yourself. Every loss is a mirror. Every gain, a fleeting reward for a lesson learned. The true enemy isn't the market's volatility. It's the refusal to learn. The ego that insists on being right even as the account bleeds. It's the stubbornness that keeps you married to a losing idea. The arrogance that makes you believe you can outsmart the collective wisdom of millions. The impatience that pushes you into trades that lack clear confirmation. The market merely exposes these flaws. It does not create them. This recontextualization of loss, from a financial setback to a psychological lesson, was profound. It shifted my focus from merely making money to becoming a better trader, a more disciplined and self-aware individual. My capital became not just a balance, but a measure of my internal fortitude, my ability to withstand the market's relentless tests. Each dollar gained was a testament to disciplined execution. Each dollar lost, a painful but necessary tuition for a lesson I had yet to fully internalize. This understanding of capital as precious ammunition, to be deployed only with surgical precision and unwavering discipline, became the bedrock of my survival. It meant that every trade had to be a high-probability setup, confirmed by the tape, aligned with the larger trend, and, most critically, sized appropriately to ensure that even if I was wrong, the battle could continue. It was about choosing my battles, not fighting every skirmish. About conserving my forces for the true opportunities that the market, in its own time, would eventually reveal. But even this profound shift in perspective, wasn't the end of the war. It was merely a turning point, because the market, that ceaseless, indifferent teacher, had one more, perhaps its most brutal, lesson to impart. It was a lesson about the very nature of truth in speculation, a truth that most traders spend their entire lives chasing, never quite grasping its elusive form, always mistaking shadows for substance. But even this profound shift in perspective, wasn't the end of the war. It was merely a turning point. Because the market, that ceaseless, indifferent teacher, had one more, perhaps its most brutal, lesson to impart. It was a lesson about the very nature of truth in speculation, a truth most traders chase, never grasping its elusive form, always mistaking shadows for substance. This final, brutal truth was the market's ultimate act of humility. It wasn't about being wrong. It was realizing that even when you were right about direction, right about the setup, right about the tape, the market could still, with a shrug, simply decide not to move. Or worse, to move just enough to shake you out before resuming its original path. It was the crushing realization that the market owes you nothing, not even a reward for diligent analysis. It acts, or doesn't act, according to its own inscrutable will, caring nothing for your conviction. You think mastering emotions is hard. Try mastering the absolute indifference of the market when you've done everything perfectly, only to be denied. Picture this. You've waited weeks for a setup, confirmed by every signal, aligned with the larger trend, position-sized perfectly. You enter with surgical precision, and then, nothing. The market flatlines, or worse, ticks against you just enough to stop you out, only to explode in your intended direction moments later. What do you do then? Your answer reveals whether you truly understand this ultimate lesson. You've felt that agony, haven't you? That sting of being right on principle, but wrong on the market's timing. You've seen your planned trade evaporate, not because analysis was flawed, but because the market simply decided to pause, playing its own psychological warfare, clearing out the impatient before the real move. It's a test of faith, not in your system, but in the relentless, impersonal nature of capital flow itself. The market's truth is not static. It is a river, constantly flowing, shifting. What was true yesterday can become a trap tomorrow. The professional understands that adaptability is not a suggestion. It is the very bedrock of survival. You cannot impose your will, your rigid beliefs, upon this ever-changing force. You must learn to dance with it, to flow with its currents, to recognize when the river is calm, when it is raging, and when it is merely a shallow stream. This means letting go of the need to be always right, letting go of rigid adherence to a single dogma. It means embracing the fluid nature of probabilities, understanding that even the strongest signals have a chance of failure, and that your job isn't to eliminate risk, but to manage it with cold, calculating humility. The market will always find a way to humble you, to remind you of your insignificance, the moment you believe you have finally conquered it. And this profound humility, this constant awareness of the market's indifferent power, leads to the ultimate question that separates the survivors from the statistics. It's the question that determines whether all lessons about size, patience, and discipline truly embed themselves into your soul, or remain mere intellectual concepts destined to be forgotten in the next wave of euphoria or panic. There is one final, crucial element, a silent pillar that underpins everything, a secret Livermore himself lived by, though he rarely spoke of it directly. It's the understanding that, the market is not merely a mechanism for wealth transfer. It is a relentless, unforgiving crucible for character. The ultimate secret, the silent pillar, is that true success in trading isn't measured in fleeting dollars, but in the profound self-mastery forged through constant, brutal confrontation with your own deepest flaws. It is a war waged not against charts or news, but against the hope that binds you to a losing trade, the fear that snatches profits too soon, the arrogance that overpowers your discipline, and the impatience that pushes you into trades that lack clear conviction. This internal war is the only true battleground. You know this. You've felt the market expose every weakness, every doubt, every flicker of greed or panic within you. It is a mirror, reflecting not just the opportunities, but the raw, unvarnished truth of who you are under pressure. The principles Livermore hammered into the bedrock of his own success-size control: patience, cutting losses without hesitation, waiting for clear setups, pyramiding winning positions, never averaging down. These are not just rules for the market. They are disciplines for the soul, tools to forge the character capable of surviving, and ultimately, thriving, in this most brutal of arenas. And so, the journey never truly ends. The market will continue its cycles, continue its deceptions, continue its relentless tests. But with each lesson internalized, each psychological trap identified and disarmed, you become less a victim of its whims, and more a master of your own destiny. The knowledge I've shared, the mistakes I've confessed, the insights I've gained through pain and perseverance, they are not a magic formula. They are a compass for your own internal war, a guide to becoming the disciplined, patient, and humble trader who understands that capital is ammunition, and survival is the highest form of profit. Therefore, as you step back into the arena, remember this: the market isn't trying to make you rich. It's trying to make you wise. It's trying to make you better. It will take everything you offer, every ounce of emotion, every dollar of indiscipline, until you learn to stand firm, cold and calculating, against its ceaseless currents. Go back through your own trading history. Look for the patterns. See the reflection. Because the man in the mirror is your greatest opponent and your greatest teacher. If this journey through the market's psychological traps resonated with you, if it opened your eyes to the deeper truths of trading, then join us. Subscribe to this channel, share these lessons with those who need to hear them, and leave a comment below sharing your own most brutal market lesson. Your experience is part of this collective wisdom, and together we can navigate the relentless currents of speculation.